Chapter 6. Marooned. Being marooned on the Goodwin Sands in the middle of the English Channel is enough to frighten you, and the Pot family and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, except that they are all fast asleep, dozing in the sun, out of your and their wits. To make matters worse, one of those summer mists came creeping across the sea, hiding the family and their magical car from the Goodwin lightship, which lies anchored some way south of the Goodwins, to warn them and all the ships of the terrible danger of the sands. The lightship began sounding its great foghorn, which is one of the loudest in the world, and blinking its dazzling white danger light. It was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang who first woke up to the danger. You see, she had gotten very hot, flying out to the sands and sitting up in the sunshine. And as the sea came creeping up, glug-glugging in the hulls of the wrecks and whispering softly over the flat sands, the water gradually submerged the wheels of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. When it reached the bottom of a radiator, she let a loud warning hiss from the hot metal. The family opened dozy eyes, and then at once they were all on their feet and Commander Pot was running to the car. He jumped in and pressed the self-starter, and with a quick Chitty Chitty Bang Bang of relief, the big car, spinning her wheels up in the wet sand so that the spray flew, crept up of the incoming tide and was steering by Commander Pot up onto the dry center of the rapidly diminished sandbank where the rest of the family was waiting. "Quick, jump in," he shouted. "We've got just enough room to take off." But as Jeremy and Jemima piled into the back seats and Mimsy got in the front, already the first little waves had run up the flat sands after them, and the bottoms of the tires were awash again. "My goodness," said Commander Pot anxiously. "Now we've had it. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang can never get up enough speed to take off through the water. The only hope is that the lightship will realize the trouble we're in and send their rescue boat for us. But that'll mean leaving poor Chitty Chitty Bang Bang marooned out here alone, and she'll gradually be covered up by the sea during the night, and she may easily be washed off the sands into the deep water, and we'll lose her forever." They all sat there gloomily as the water glugged around them and the fog thickened and there was no sign of a rescue boat, then suddenly realized that they might all be drowned out there in the middle of the English Channel. All this while Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's engine had been running steadily on, but very soon, any minute now, the level of the sea would be up to her electric generator, and there would be a blinding blue flash of a short circuit and the engine would go dead. Suddenly, amongst the many dials and buttons and levers on the dashboard, a violet light began to blink urgently, showing the words, "Turn the knob." And quickly, although Commander Pot didn't know what the secret of every one of those rows upon row of gadgets on the dashboard, he turned the knob under the violet light. And from underneath the car there came a soft grinding of cogwheels and a curious lifting and shifting of the chassis so that the whole family peered out over the sides to see what was happening. And do you know what? I bet you can guess. All four wheels pointed fore and aft of all wheels do, and turned and now had flattened out like a hovercraft. Being an inventor, Commander Pot realized what this meant and what the result would be, so he pressed slowly on the accelerator, and just as the waves came up level with the floorboards, all four wheels began to turn like propellers. There was a jerk, and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang began to move through the water, just like a motorboat with four wheels whizzing round and round, propelling her forward. Well, that was all very fine, but she was a heavy car with four people on her, and the only way to keep from sinking was to go fast, and they were almost skimming over the surface. So Commander Pot trod the accelerator into the floorboard, where the great whirl of spray from the four wheels and the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang fairly sped across the surface of the sea, kicking up a big bow wave like a speedboat. Commander Pot had quite a tricky time dodging the mass of the sunken wrecks of the Goodwin Sands, weaving in and out of the tall, rusty iron spikes as they were involved in some kind of watery maze, but a dangerous one. Because if Commander Pot hadn't whirled the wheels this way and that, they would have ended up just another Goodwin wreck. The fog swirled around them. The foghorn from the lightship gave a huge double hoot every 2 minutes, and it really was pretty dangerous and spooky. To tell the truth, Mimsy and Jemima held their breath and clutched tight to the armrests, expecting any moment to hear a grinding crash and find themselves swimming for dear life. But somehow, Commander Pot and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang between them managed to dodge all the obstacles, and soon they were in clear water swooshing along through the fog. They had all let out a great whew of relief when Jeremy, who had a good sense of direction, said, "But Daddy, aren't we pointing the wrong way? There's a hoot of the Goodwin Lightship foghorn coming from down on the right. Oughtn't we sail towards her and then on past towards Dover?" Commander Potts said sternly, "You mustn't say down on the right. We're all sailors now. You must say starboard. That's naval language for right. And the sea left is port." He twirled the wheel to the left, so Chitty Chitty Bang Bang swirled to the left. "Now we're going port." He turned the wheel to the right. "Now we're going starboard." Quite easily to remember. Port is left. Both have fewer letters in them. And right and starboard. Got it? "Well, yes," said Jeremy. "That sounds easy, but still, Daddy, whichever way you're going to, port or starboard, I bet you're going the wrong way. Away from England, I mean." At this, Commander cracked his pot on his secret face, the face he wore around Christmas time when Jeremy and Jemima asked if they were going to get what they had asked Father Christmas for, and the face he put on when, for instance, he was preparing the Easter egg hunt. All of them, Mimsy and Jemima and Jeremy, recognized their father's secret face and waited excitedly for what was to come as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang sped on through the fog, throwing up fountains of spray from her whirling wheels while the sound of the Goodwin Lightship foghorn got further and further away. "Well," said Commander Pot in his surprising voice. He also had a particular voice for springing surprises with him. "It's the holiday, isn't it?" "Yes," they chorused. "So we'd ought to have a holiday adventure, right?" "Yes," they all said breathlessly. "Well," said Commander Pot, "Chitty Chitty Bang Bang is going like smoke, and Channel's as flat as a mill pond. We've got plenty of petrol, and the oil pressure's fine, and the engine temperature's all right, and the fog will lift the further we get away from land. And it can't be more than about 25 miles now to the other side of the channel. And we're going about 30 knots at a naval knot is about 1.15 miles per hour, which gives us a speed of about 35 miles per hour. So the whole trip would take less than an hour. And as it's only 5 o'clock now," he paused for breath, "and as we've never been abroad, I thought it would be rather fun to go to France." "Good heavens," says Mimsy. "Gosh," says Jemima. "My hat," said Jeremy, and for the moment they all sat thinking about the colossal adventure. Then Mimsy said, "But we hadn't got any passports." Then Jeremy said, "But don't they have a different money in France? Francs, they call them. What about francs?" And Jemima said, "What about the language? I've only learned oui, which means yes, and non, which means no. And that's not going to get me very far." Commander Pot said firmly, "That's no way to treat adventures. Never say no to adventures. Always say yes. Otherwise, you'll lead a very dull life. Now then, passports. We'll make for Calais, which is dead ahead, and we'll go to the British consul, who represents all English people from the Queen down in Calais, and get provisional passports. Money? We've got pounds, and we'll change them into francs. Language, Mimsy and I both talk French a little bit, and if we can't make ourselves understood, we'll find somebody who talks English. Most people in the world talk English than any other language, and we'll soon find somebody, right? Then that's settled. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang's going to take us right across the English Channel to France. Now then, we'll turn on the radio and get the weather report for the ships, and we'll steer a bit more towards the north, and there's quite a current running down the channel, and we don't want to be swept along with it and suddenly find ourselves in Portugal or even Africa," he chuckled, "do we?" All together, and very loud and definitely, they said, "No, we don't." So Commander Pot fiddled with the dials on the radio, and out came the familiar voice they had never bothered to listen to before. But now it was very important indeed. It said, "And this is the shipping forecast. North Sea and English Channel. Dead calm. Patches of fog near English coast. Further outlook, unchanged." Commander Pot switched off the radio. "Well, that's all right. But now we've got to keep our eyes and ears open. The English Channel's always crowded with ships sailing up and down from London, which is the biggest port in the world, and from Belgium and Holland and Denmark and Sweden and Norway, and even from Russia, on its way to and from Africa, India, America, and even as far away as China and Japan. Ships of every nationality use the English Channel, and we'd better watch out, or we'll be run down. And even as he spoke, they heard the giant beat of an engine of a big ship approaching, and Commander Pott quickly sounded the klaxon as a foghorn, and it says, "Gauga! Gauga!" to warn the big ship. Back out of the fog came a series of huge moos, just like the noise a vast iron cow might make, and through the fog, coming straight at them, was the bow of a gigantic white liner. Well, all I can say is that it missed them by a cat's whisker, and they just had a glimpse of the lines of passengers of 100 feet above them, staring down at astonishment at the sight of the green motor car using its wheels sideways like propellers in the middle of the English Channel. Then the huge stern disappeared into the fog, leaving them pitching and tossing in the choppy wake. "Whew," they all said, more or less together. "That was a narrow squeak." And Commander Pott added rather unfairly, "The others thought, Chitty, chitty, bang, bang, for heaven's sake, keep your eyes open and watch where you're going." This gave them an idea, and he switched the fog lights on and kept on making frequent guaugas on the klaxon. Well, they heard many more ships passing in both directions up and down the channel, and once the periscope of a submarine came shooting up out of the depths to have a look at them, and then quickly slid down under the water again. They imagined word being passed around amongst the 80 or 90 men on the crew. Yes, big submarines carry as many as that. Stone and crows, there's a perishing motor car overhead. Then suddenly the fog cleared, and they were out in the sunshine with the big white cliffs of France showing up on the horizon. And they all let out a cheer that, quite surprisingly, the crew of the Dutch shoot a kind of small barge you can see a lot of in the channel, though when it's at home it's pronounced itself scoot, which happened to be passing. The Dutch crew let out a big hurrah, too, as they gazed in amazement as Chitty, Chitty, Bang, Bang whizzed across the surface of the calm sea. They sped happily on, getting nearer to France, and Commander Pott said it was now time to steer north so that they would arrive in the harbor of Calais. But this was easier said than done. The strong current kept drifting them southwards, and every time Commander Pott turned the wheel to steer north, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang had to slow down because of her wheels couldn't go around and round like propellers and change directions at the same time. Commander Pott, and in fact all of them, began to get quite worried because there was no doubt that they were going to land on a beach at the base of the gigantic French chalk cliffs, that they were just as high and steep as the ones on the English shore near Dover. Sure enough, the water got shallower and shallower until they touched the shingle, and the violet light of the dashboard blinked urgently and said, "Turn the knob." Then Commander Pott turned the knob, and there came a small purr of machinery under the chassis, and the wheels straightened out and clicked back into straightforward position, and they bumped and churned their way up onto the beach. Of course, everyone was very glad to be on dry land again, but nothing could alter the fact that they were stuck on the bottom of the giant cliffs and soared up above them towards the sky. And the tide was still coming in, and it was 6:30, and there would only be about 3 more hours of daylight, and it really looked as if the whole family and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang were in the most dreadful and dangerous situation.